and free will. Narrated by Sion Dason. For tens of thousands of years, we humans lived by stories that made sense of our place in the universe and how we came to be. Amongst all creatures, the stories said, we were special. Then, about 150 years ago, Charles Darwin dealt those stories a serious blow. He advanced an idea called natural selection, which said that variations in organisms that aid in survival tend to flourish. All living organisms, humans included, had evolved over time. This was a simple yet world-shaking idea. For those who deny it, and for many of those who accept it, the theory of evolution would seem to imply that those old stories had it dead wrong. If we evolved like any other organism, then our lives have no special meaning or purpose. When we pretend otherwise, we're fooling ourselves. We're no more significant, free, or unique than a slug or a potato. Fortunately, as we'll learn in these blinks, evolution doesn't actually require this dire interpretation of humanity and the meaning of life. We are unique animals in the epic tale of creation, and we have evolution to thank for it. Blink 1 of 8. Natural selection explains a lot, but not all, of our evolution. Charles Darwin gets top billing as a founding father of the theory of evolution by natural selection, but another British naturalist, Alfred Russel Wallace, actually beat him to it. Wallace and Darwin were colleagues, pen pals, and a source of support to one another. In fact, a letter from Wallace prompted Darwin to publish his groundbreaking work on the origin of species in 1859. But as time passed, Wallace began to have doubts. The theory wasn't enough. How could it be, he wondered, that a mind adapted for mere survival could paint a portrait, construct a cathedral, or compose a symphony? How could such a mind uncover the scientific truths of the universe? The answer may lie in a truth that both Darwin and Wallace understood. Not all evolution is directly attributable to natural selection. In other words, evolution leaves room for accidental and fortuitous outcomes. The strange abilities of the human brain may result from one such happy accident. About 3 million years ago, the human brain began to grow, and within what amounts to a geological instant, it tripled in size. We're still exploring why this happened, but we know this much. Our new big brains not only helped us walk, talk, forage, and hunt, they also gave us abilities that had no immediate bearing on survival. That's the accidental and fortuitous part. For example, our big brains made it possible for us to contemplate ourselves, the earth, and the stars. They made it possible to find answers by creating myths, religion, art, literature, math, and science. They made it possible for us to understand evolution itself. In 1979, the evolutionary biologists Stephen Jay Gould and Richard Lewontin coined a term for the happy accidents of evolution: spandrels. They borrowed the term from architecture, and it describes the triangular forms that allow an arch to support a dome in, for example, a cathedral. In their essay, The Spandrels of San Marco, Gould and Lewontin use the architectural features as a metaphor for the occasionally beautiful and often powerful byproducts of evolution. As we move through the next few blinks, keep spandrels in the back of your mind. We'll learn more about how spandrels of the brain made us what we are. But first, we have to come to terms with some of the potentially dispiriting implications of our natural origins. Blink 2 of 8. Learning that we're mere products of evolution may be dispiriting, but we can't ignore the evidence. So, we've established that we're part of evolution, just like any other organism. For many, this truth hurts. It's a demotion from the ordained place we held in our myths. Back in Darwin's days, and for a good while after that, those who opposed evolution didn't have to dig very deep to find evidence that seemed to contradict the new theory. The fossil record connecting us to ancient apes was riddled with gaps and misinterpretations. Naturalists sought the missing link, a species to serve as a halfway mark between us and our ape ancestors, but they hadn't had much luck. The so-called Java man, uncovered in the forests of Indonesia, was little more than a piece of skull. Piltdown Man from the dirt of southern England turned out to be a hoax. All in all, humanity's evolutionary fossil record wasn't much to go on. Things have definitely changed since then. The fossil record now includes thousands of skull pieces that show a steady lineage of humans going back over 7 million years. Our analysis has radically improved as well. We can input the contours of these skulls into computer models and show precisely how the face shapes, jaw lines, and brain sizes of ancient humans evolved to the modern form. Study of the human genome has uncovered its own fossil record. Scientists have discovered that we carry a gene meant to aid in laying eggs with a protein-rich yolk. This gene is an inheritance from our reptilian ancestors. That's just one little example of the overwhelming scientific support behind the theory of evolution. There's simply no substantive debate on the science. Real objections come from our unease, our sense that we've lost the holy significance we were so sure we possessed. We can't recover that confidence by denying evolution. And as we'll see in the next blink, we also can't recover it by construing evolution as a vanity project. Blink 3 of 8. We're not the pinnacle of evolution. In the early 1700s, a Swedish man called Carolus Linnaeus gave himself a big job. He set about drafting the first thoroughly systematic classification of every organism on Earth. In 1735, he brought forth his work as a book called Systema Naturae. Linnaeus's work had a huge impact on zoology, and it influenced the taxonomy of animals for centuries. For example, it was Linnaeus who introduced the binomial classification system, which uses two names for every organism, one for the genus and one for the species. It's thanks to him that we're known as Homo sapiens, which, by the way, means the thinking human. Like any other author, Linnaeus had his critics. He'd included Homo sapiens in Systema Naturae, which implied, for some, a flattening of the hierarchy between man and nature. Worse, Linnaeus grouped humans with monkeys, apes, and sloths, an association that did not please the theologians. In later editions, Linnaeus added religious poetry to the frontispiece and gave the name primus, or primates, to the human and ape group. The name was meant to indicate that its members were animals of the highest rank. But standing by his convictions as a natural historian, Linnaeus refused to put Homo sapiens in a category of its own. "We belong with the apes," he said. The tension at once to recognize our connection to animals and to maintain our status above them hasn't disappeared. Perhaps the clearest depiction of these conflicting desires appeared in 1965, 2 centuries on from Linnaeus. In that year, Time Life published a natural history book that featured a brilliant 5-page fold-out illustration. The illustration showed a parade of humanoids spanning 25 million years from left to right, from proto-apes to Neanderthals to modern humans, all male, each one more upright than the last, striding forward. The illustration, which was called March of Progress, or The Road to Homo sapiens, has since become the single most influential image in popular conception of human evolution. Do a Google image search for human evolution and the March of Progress, or a parody of it, will certainly show up in the top results. But evolution has no grand hierarchy. There's no ladder, pyramid, or tree. No prize for best creature. There's only each species' struggle with changing circumstance. Each one has a niche and its means of securing it. Each one is a survivor of extinct predecessors. In this way, every species is unique. So, in what ways are we unique? For one, we happen to be the sole species capable of discovering the natural process that created us. We'll offer a more thorough explanation later in these blinks. But before we do, we have to examine another mistaken tendency in the way we interpret evolution. Blink 4 of 8. Looking to evolution as an explanation for everything can lead to some very bad ideas. In February 1978, the biologist E.O. Wilson stepped up to the podium at the annual meeting of the Association for the Advancement of Science. Wilson had a new field of inquiry to propose: sociobiology. Wilson had risen to prominence by brilliantly